Checking back in, State Representative Taki Chan of Quincy is joining us for another Taki Talk podcast. Hey, Taki, how are you?
Morning, Joe. Happy to be here on a clear uh, Wednesday morning on the 13th of September. Well, shocking there's sun.
Yeah, well, don't get used to it. It won't last long.
You've all
Because
been
we're
watching the
supposed
weather.
to.
You all been watching the weather report. I mean, Hurricane Lee, I believe, is going to be making a brush by sometime on Saturday, I believe.
Yeah, looks like kind of a windy, rainy day on Saturday. Let's hope it's not too bad for folks and just gets on out of here quickly.
Well, you all see the flood damage up in North Andover. It's bad.
Yeah.
If you come to tour the location and you've seen the news coverage, I mean, roads are completely ripped up in that city. The
Oh,
flood
yeah.
ripped through it.
Leominster, too, got pummeled. I saw the commuter rail tracks just hanging in midair with the ground under it just washed away.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we've seen rains this bad, but then again, it was really a very contained period. It was back in St. Patty's Day weekend back in 2010.
Mhm.
When you had the astronomical high moon and the storm hitting at the same time the moon did, and the winds blowing straight off the ocean, basically pushing water uphill. Remember the cars over at State Street floating around?
I remember it well, yeah, and we don't want to see that again for sure.
No, it's even though it's been very wet. Thankfully, we've not had a deluge over form where it was multiple days of a deluge. We've just been getting wet. But on the flip side, trees can't take anymore. I mean, I think there's a saturation point where the ground gets just so muddy and the tree roots just can't take anymore.
Right, that's the fear is if the winds pick up, the trees aren't going to be able to hold.
Yeah, the ground's just too much water. And it's kind of fat. But I mean, meantime, grass and your shrubbery and some of your trees are just having a field day this year in terms of growth.
No, I know mowing lawns all year long seems like.
Oh yeah, no, I've struggled myself trying to get my lawn done in between weekends when actually home to actually mow the lawn. As we know, events are picking up locally during weekdays with nights. I've not received anything in the month of December yet. I still believe that people are going to be calming down their indoor events when we the holiday season, especially with the COVID spike going on now, which is similar to the year before. But it doesn't seem to be nearly as deadly, but still dangerous.
Right, yeah, updated vaccines approved just this week, actually.
Yeah, again, obviously, you all know I'm very much encouraging people to get vaccinated. I want to get vaccinated as soon as I can get vaccinated. I do care for a mom who is immune compromised, and it's very important for me to get vaccinated. We're probably going to increase our mask wearing as we head into the winter months. I'm going to be doing a little traveling again. Starting next week, go to an electric vehicle policy conference for legislators in Ohio. So I'm hearing friends are getting COVID largely from vacation travel. So the degree of caution there is a combination, not just being trapped in the train in the plane, well, trains too, but especially planes. But also you may be going to areas where there's not as high herd immunity, so to speak, because there's insufficient vaccination or people have not gotten COVID enough times. I hate to say it that way, to develop natural resistance to the disease. So, I know folks are, had an August vacation. I'm sure there's going to be more people traveling, maybe less so, but still some people traveling as we head into holiday season. But, be very conscientious of the fact where you go to may not have the same vaccination or infection rates that they'll keep the virus from spreading at a wild rate. So, again, I encourage vaccination, even if you've contracted COVID. It is addressing the XXB. I keep calling it BXX, but the XXB variant. And the drug makers seem to believe they can move fast enough to create probably another one by springtime to address the newest variants that are popping up in the late summer.
Yeah, that was the whole idea behind this new mRNA technology, right? Is they could kind of customize them very quickly as to what virus is out there.
Yeah, I like to stress as mRNA, not DNA. It's two different things. So the RNA messenger is taking strands of basically half a DNA, for lack of a better term, the key components to identify the virus. And the messenger sends it to your immune system to say, look out for this. Hence, messenger. It sends a messenger RNA, the RNA relative parts of what you're looking for. In this case, it's those little spiky proteins that you see in graphics. And your body's on the lookout for the same spiky proteins. They don't actually introduce the DNA of the virus. They only introduce the key sections of the RNA to tell your body to know what to look for in order to kill it. So hence the word messenger. As you all discovered, things mutate and mutate fast. Evolution continues, so to speak. And they have to update their vaccines as they analyze new viruses to determine what parts of their genome, basically specific sections that carries the code for the things your body needs to look for to go kill. So your immune system the goal is to get your immune system out on, kill these things as they get into your system before they cause major damage. And that's what essentially is. People have these real misconceptions about what's going on, and they always say, well, it's not like conventional vaccines. Conventional vaccines have an inactive virus.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit different. You have a virus that is not per se dead, because viruses aren't dead or alive. It's a very curious symbiotic thing that I don't even know. No one really is clear what it is in terms of it's dead or alive, because it can't exist without you. But the idea of an inactive virus is not a dead virus. It's just not on, and they would have to introduce the entire inactive virus, and your body would have to try to decipher on its own, try to figure out on its own what the message is. And that's been the traditional vaccines, and the majority of people respond well. Messenger RNA does it in such a manner where it's such a targeted message to your body for something specific. Your odds improve that your body's immune system will kick in properly as soon as it identifies the invader, so to speak, inside your body. So messenger RNA is considered a more effective teaching method for your body. And Moderna is right now working on a couple of messenger RNA technology for things like melanoma. And I heard this morning they're trying to get the stage 2 process for lung cancer. Lung cancer is extremely common. So, if they can convince your body to look for cancer cells, customized by taking your cancer cells, identify what the cancer cells are, take the mRNA out of it with the right markers of the mRNA, just send those specific markers in the messenger to your body, then your body's like, oh, this doesn't belong. My body has created a cell that's mutating into cancer. Let's kill this thing before it gets worse.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting technology. I mean, if there is a silver lining to the pandemic, it just might be that, that the technology develops to treat cancer and cure cancer.
Yeah, I talked about this a few on here before, but I visited actually quite a few biotech labs, it feels like now, and technology labs before COVID hit. And there was actually already technology about custom growing your own cells in petri dishes to then introduce drugs to those cells in these petri dishes to try to gauge what your body response would be to these drugs, meaning that you won't have to take a drug. They'll create like a liver cell sample, give it drugs, see how your liver cells react before giving it to you. This is revolutionary in the sense that it accelerates the process where they're taking the cancer cells from your body, identifying that cancer cells, and customize a message to your body just for you, for your specific genome, for your specific cancer RNA, and attack it directly, as opposed to people who may have a cancer mutation occur rapidly, and the treatment will not reveal signs of whether treatment effectiveness, for up to 3 to 9 months in some instances, depending on your PET scan, MRA, CAT scans, biopsy, blood tests, and those who care for cancer patients know that or have cancer. I mean, there's a lot of testing involved. There's always a delay. You have to wait for effectiveness. So if Pfizer, Moderna, and other companies are able to take your cancer cells, decipher the code, and identifying markers they need to tell your body, they're not giving back your cancer. You're just going to take out the pieces that says, body, look for these things and kill it. And it does it effectively. Your treatment options will be super duper tailored to you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Instead of, traditional chemotherapy where you just kill everything and start over.
Yes, that's very true. And also the fact that it's one size fit all chemistry, right? Right now, cancer meds and a lot of medications are one size fit all. They're designed specifically for you. I mean, that's for you. I'm sorry. They're designed specifically for a demographic
Yeah.
based on their testing, the trial tests. So it's not customized. And, when I was at the AIPI and state legislators conference last October, we talked about this and testing and vaccines and the underrepresentation of the vast majority of the American public is not part of trial testing. So, for example, Asian Americans are almost non-existent in parts of the testing. Latinos, Hispanics, almost non-existent as part of the testing. It's predominantly Caucasians, Europeans, and but not even a large part of the Black community either. This is actually part of the thing about trial studies. It doesn't represent the whole population, and we're not all the same people inside of us. So, having a broad demographic of, age, socioeconomic backgrounds, health, but also ethnic makeup is crucial for these kind of broad shot vaccines. If mRNA turns to be successful for cancer, you may not need that type of broad shot testing. You are now customizing it specifically for your disease to try to help you specifically, your body, to help fight it off.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. It really is. It's space age stuff we're talking about here.
It's very exciting. Perhaps in the next 5 years, certain types of cancer, your lifespan may improve. Again, because of targeted medicine designed for you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What's going on in Beacon Hill these days, Tacky?
Honestly, not a lot. I've returned to my meeting schedules if people want to discuss bills in committee, and also activists and lobbying groups to activists and lobby whatever they're interested in. And obviously the emails been coming in about asking for governor overrides on things like the Head Start program, housing programs, the QCAP, and many others. So we're kind of waiting for the schedule to come up from the Speaker's office, and obviously the Senate President's office. So kind of waiting out. In the meantime, we have tentatively scheduled hearings for October in my committee. I say tentative because we haven't put the notices out officially yet. We're communicating with membership, House and Senate members about various local initiatives, the so-called home rule petitions right now, trying to gauge what's going on and what is really going on. Until we ask our questions, we don't understand what they're trying to get to. And my committee gets a lot of late file. So there's a distinct possibility we may do another, I refer to as cleanup late file hearing, probably sometime in November, depending on the volume, and maybe again in the early spring. So the committee staff and I had started planning out. We already planned about now. It's kind of a funny gig, right? You kind of like have this long plan of what you like to do, but then as you get closer, things keep changing on you. So they were constantly readjusting the stuff. So I have like this massive outline in my brain back in like February. And then by the time it gets to August, it doesn't work anymore. This is just the reality of life, people. Just because you have this massive plan that you think would be perfect in February, you get to August, September, October, and realize, well, maybe we should adjust this plan.
Let's talk a little bit. Actually, today, September 13th, is when the National Guard is being deployed to some of the migrant hotels across Massachusetts. I think 250 members of the Guard are being deployed because of the state of emergency that exists right now. And as you're well aware, Tacky, there's a welcome center here in Quincy, different than the hotel shelters, I know, and a major public hearing about that last night.
Yeah, let me see if I can break this down as best I can here. So Quincy has a welcome center and a temporary housing facility at the Eastern Nazarene College. I think we all know that. But I think the problem people run across is twofold. What is a welcoming center and what is the status in the state on this? As you reported, there was a closed-door meeting with the lieutenant governor and various secretariats regarding what the status is. And I will not pretend that the members were not happy regarding this. It was clearly a degree of frustration regarding the information flow from the governor's folks to us and consistent messaging what's going on. And the membership was not happy, to say the least. There was a degree of frustration. And I can tell you that my colleagues are not frustrated, the migrants themselves. We're very sympathetic as a body on the matter because there's a human crisis, and we believe that every human being should be treated with dignity. This is a pretty much universal thing about folks on Beacon Hill. The problem is that while we want to be helpful, we don't understand how to be helpful. And just doing stuff on your own, guessing, is generally a recipe for disaster. So in Massachusetts, 80 cities and towns are now hosting approximately 6,200 migrant families and counting, with an average arrival rate of between 25 and 50 families a day. Quincy is not a shelter facility in the sense that they are not here to be in a location for extended period of time. We're trying to decide where to go next. It is a processing center. I don't want to use that word. It sounds absolutely mechanical, but that's what it is. It's a center for folks to come in, check in, get a health check, confirm vaccination status if possible. If not, Manatee Community Health will proceed to make sure the health check's correct. If there's severe health problems, they will get sent to Boston Medical Center. And then they'll stay about 3 to 5 days or so, and then they'll be sent to a shelter somewhere else in one of these 80 communities. So it's not hard to do the math. We know that it's not equal distribution, but it's 6,200 families, and we say there's 4 members per family for the sake of easy math. Looking at over 25,000 and more individuals that's coming to state. If you say it's a little higher, 5-person, obviously gets you over, 30,000, 32,000 plus. And given the rate of arrival, we're kind of looking at perhaps 10,000 families potentially by end of October at the current pace. The federal government is not setting them up here. They're here on emergency temporary visas as part of crises. This is not new, because if you all can look at the news in Haiti, it's not a good place. And these folks are fleeing the potential of being murdered. I'll give you another example of a temporary visa group that I've been dealing with or working with for many years now is the Nepalese. The Nepalese population settled here, several thousand of them settled in Massachusetts as a result of an earthquake that literally flattened those communities. When I say flattened, I mean it's under a mountain now. And as a result, they are here on temporary visa. In their case, it was 2 years. Their visas were expiring, and they were looking for extensions because this homes were under a mountain. As humanitarian and generous country that we are in terms of trying to be helpful, federal government needs to figure out what to do with the Nepalese people that literally don't have a home. So it's a similar situation here. Obviously, you're aware of the Afghan situation, you're aware of the Ukrainian situation, and they are also both here. In Massachusetts, we have about 2,000 plus last year of Afghans and Ukrainians, and probably, I don't know what the count is in 2023, because obviously we're dealing with the current migrant crisis. So this emergency shelter issue is not just Haitians. It is, as you can hear, over 2,000 others. It's just that when you look at 6,200, it kind of dwarfs the 200. Quincy has processed over 350 plus families in and out of the ENC, Eastern Nazarene College, and it's designed to rotate in and out 50 odd families, give or take a few. And so 350, not complicated. Already had 7-ish cycles of people moving through here, going to other communities. Some communities are housing well past 200 families. And it was brought up last night, are they just dumping it in a working class community like ours? The answer is no. There are wealthier communities, Concord being one that comes straight to my mind to the top, that are housing migrants. Unfortunately, you go to Concord, they don't have a human service network because it's Concord. They are well off. So the National Guard is helping to move people around the state and try to see if they can find human service organizations that can service outside their territory, because why would you go to Concord as a human service organization? And provide assistance and transport, things like food, transport to medical checkups. For example, we don't need folks bringing in more viruses, and also get human service organizations out to them. So it's a work in progress. I think is the best way to put it. It's not perfect, and there probably is going to be a lot of trial and error moving through this process. In an interim, the state is looking for more places to shelter migrants. Quincy is not a city that's going to shelter migrants, meaning they're not going to be here in our school systems. They're going to, again, they're rotating through. So other communities I know, like Lowell, is struggling with the idea of having migrants to try to figure out if they can, not just the city, but also the Human Service Network can absorb more people into their service area. There's a struggle for many communities where people are not saying they don't want to be helpful, but they're trying to figure out how to be helpful the best they can. The big problem we're going to have is that this hotel service is something the legislature has pushed back against way back to the Deval administration, to the Deval Patrick administration, where the 2009 crisis, 2008, 9, 10 fiscal cliff, you may all remember, resulted in an enormous amount of homelessness and foreclosure in homes. Hopefully many who are old enough remember how bad that was. And we were sheltering families in the hotels. And they were pretty much there till almost 2017, where the Baker administration really started to put an end to this hotel shelter program and develop a permanent housing transition program. And the emergency shelter program is designed specifically for families who have children, small children, as well as pregnant individuals that need emergency sheltering now in a temporary basis. And their cause of homelessness has no cause of their fault. I also remind folks that there's nothing to do with the housing authorities. We do get a lot of phone calls in my office asking for to get moved on the list. Big surprise, right? That's what they ask. Let's be honest, people. You think they call up and say, hey, I need to get a housing authority. Can you move me on the list? No, I can't move you on the list. It's a process in itself. But I guess you guys can imagine those type of phone calls I get. You can only get public housing in Massachusetts if you're a permanent resident or a U.S. citizen, not a visa holder. So it does not affect the public housing lists. We can always sit and debate about whether they do a good job on identification, but that is how it is. You have a permanent resident or visa holder. I'm sorry, not visa, permanent resident, U.S. citizen. You cannot be a visa holder. So that is how that's how it's supposed to work. I can't speak to every housing authority doing it correctly, but that's the law. And then obviously we are not getting much federal money. We heard from the administration that they got $2 million in assistance to address this issue, which is a drop in the bucket. State House News Service has reported this could potentially be $45 million a month. This is why we don't like the hotel service. And they're running on 30-day-ish contracts. I think it's a little confusing because it's not clear for the hotel contracts specifically. Eastern Nazarene has a 1-year contract, but the hotel's a little bit tricky because the idea is that you're not supposed to keep them there forever, but they don't have a solution of how to address the issue right now. So this is a real quandary for the legislature. We just don't know enough about what the plan is. And these folks are coming in on plane, train, an automobile, for lack of a better term. So we've been taking some media hits regarding the 1983 law, right to shelter. I will say this very simply. If the right to shelter law wasn't in place, they'll be living on the streets. Let's just be very clear on that. And in the 2008 fiscal cliff, when people were foreclosed on homes, it wasn't for the family shelter, emergency shelter program and right to shelter. In 2008, 2009, 2010, you think you have sufficient homeless folks around you. Can you imagine the volume of people be out there on the street if because of the foreclosure situation? So, that's what's keeping them out of the streets. We all know that some folks will not take assistance. I think we all aware of that you can't force people to. And also with these migrants, they come from a very bad situation. They had to flee, they had to protect themselves, and probably had to do some things you never have to ever imagine to do to keep your children alive. And let's say it's very simple. It's not in their best interest to be problematic.
It's interesting. The governor asked the Secretary of Homeland Security to change, I guess, the work authorization process to help these folks get jobs quicker.
Yeah, we have a labor shortage nationally. That's no different from here. And the faster we get them jobs, the faster we can transition somehow into a more non-hotel housing situation. Let's put it that way. So, for example, you may not be aware your service in the Cape might have been very slow this summer. The temporary work visas for the Cape was still a mess, left over from both the Trump administration and COVID combination. The idea of having folks that need jobs as they try to move into some housing solution is very appetizing for a lot of industries in Massachusetts who are looking for help. People always say, "Oh, we'll take jobs away from other folks," but if you think the job's so good, why aren't you doing it? Right? I'm a very one of those people that don't talk. You go do it yourself and come back and tell me. So this is, as you can hear, the size of my sign is a real frustration from the state standpoint that we can't get these work visas. Temporary visa holders can get work status. I mean, I was just brought in Nepalese, right? They're doing that for the Afghans. They're doing that for Ukrainians. So we are very frustrated with the federal government on a number of levels. And I still think the feds treat this very poorly. They treat it as a national security issue and as not a humanitarian issue. Most countries look at this as a humanitarian issue regarding overstretching their ability to handle people coming in, not putting armed guards trying to keep people out.
Mm.
And again, not all countries the same. For example, Poland welcome with open arms Ukrainians, but then shut the doors on the Syrians or bust the Syrians across the country to drop it on the Germans. So, yeah. So, pretty straightforward, which I said. So I think people should not think this is uniquely American behavior.
I guess it's unclear to me anyway as to the process for taking migrants from the border, getting them into the system, and then kind of distributing them across the country. How does that process happen? How is it determined where they go and how they get there?
Well, this is actually kind of a mystery as well, because not all visa holders are the same. There's like almost 200 visa statuses in the U.S. It is ridiculously complicated in this country at immigration. I mean, when my parents got here in the 60s, very easy to understand. Yeah, here's your qualifications, here's how you qualify, here's how you do sponsorships, and this is what you have to do to get the permanent resident status, and how long you have to be a permanent resident before you get your citizenship. It was actually very straightforward. Now it's a complete cluster of disasters because no one really understands it, and it's always an evolving issue. So let's see if I can see how much I really know about this, because I don't think I really know much about this. So they come to the border, they're processed at the border. ICE, will be out there and they do the screening regarding safety and who they are, where they are, and identifying documents if there are any. And if they feel that they meet the status of a temporary emergency visa because of the situation, what's going on at home, they'll grant them a visa. One of the big problems in this situation is that unlike flying in Afghans and Ukrainians, or Afghans in particular, because the nature of the evac for the United States, that's a more accurate example. The U.S. government is now responsible for the Afghan population that fled, and they would be trying to find locations to put them specifically. What I'm understanding thus far is that in this situation, they come off the border, they get the temporary status, and then the federal government just kind of like lets them go in the sense that there's guidance. Not like in the sense that we're going to grab you, stick in a bus, and send you someplace. It's more like there's no like guidance of what's supposed to happen next. And I told a story before about immigration, a court too. If you've been rejected by the immigration court to stay in the U.S., there's no guidance. They just kind of like say, we're done with you. And then just like you walk out and then you're like, now what? Because there was no guidance about who they report to or where they need to go. They just kind of like leave you in the courthouse steps and like, good luck. And it's like, I've been rejected. Good luck. And now what? Right. So this sounds very similar to some of those stories, I hear in the federal level where it's like, oh yeah, great, you're here, we dump you and run, and you're done. It's rather irresponsible to start with. And you got folks that are just like, okay, now what? And
Right.
well, there's nothing here for me here because there's nothing here where I'm standing at the processing center. Let's go somewhere.
Right. So it's left up to the local communities and the states to deal with it.
And that's correct. As these individuals move around the country, the consequences are paid for by citizen towns and the state with no knowledge or understanding. Now, mind you, we do get about 60,000 influx of students a year on average. This includes just undergrad and graduate, but also teaching faculty day here, visiting faculty and whatnot. The state, is about 7-ish million people. We rotate 60,000 people-ish on a regular cycle and seasonal level. Plus we have, hundreds of thousands of tourists come through the state on a temporary status because they just come in and come out in short periods. But this is very different, right? Between the Afghans, the Haitians, any other folks that are
Right. Yeah,
that are
students, teachers, tourists, they all have a place to go back to.
they all come transit through. This is very different because Ukrainians, Haitians, Afghans, and any other demographic comes in. The temporary visa status, and they kind of just don't know what to do. That's what the welcome centers are there for, to try to provide some guidance what to do, which the federal government should have done as part of processing. Again, humanitarian crisis versus a security matter.
Right. Yeah, I know we talked about this before, is there need to be welcome centers at the borders, would meet these people where they're coming.
Yeah, and a plan to coordinate with the states, right? What the states are going to, where can we get ready? And, and the feds have put all this money in infrastructure and semiconductors. That's great. But I mean, at what point did anyone think about the fact that, can you help the states out? And this is the disconnect you're hearing from me regarding Washington, D.C. and like everybody else, right? It's not just disconnect at your kitchen table. It's a disconnect with local government and state governments regarding things they do. And they just kind of walk away like, oh, not my problem.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, and I think that's kind of what led to some of the emotions that came out of last night's meeting at Central, was the lack of communication, between the state and the city and the community.
Yes, I didn't attend the Improv Beechwood meeting back in August. Actually, I was flying home when that was happening. I was in transit to get home. I was in the Logan Express bus after the meeting already started. And you guys know the Sumner Tunnel was closed in August, so let's say it wasn't speedy getting home. But I do recommend the Logan Express. It's vastly better than trying to get Uber, who doesn't want a service when the sun was closed. And I heard that was much more heated from multiple persons and much more visceral. I actually thanked the mayor for this meeting, which was much more civil, much more, how to put it this way, structured. That's the best way. The mayor did a great job structuring the meeting. And as I was telling my friends, he did a good job keeping the lid on the pot, so to speak, so the water doesn't boil over. And also Secretary Augustus and Secretary Walsh from Housing, and also Secretary of Human Services, which is Walsh, Secretary Walsh, came by and did the best to answer the questions, made it clear that Quincy was not singled out by any stretch. You just heard 6,200 families, we got 52-ish. We're not been singled out by any stretch. And also Basic Community Services and ENC doing the best to answer questions as well. And there's a lot of frustration about the audience about what they should and should know. But I'm going to remind people once again of this, and this is kind of the thing that everyone keeps losing sight of. One, the ENC's always had apartments. They've been filled. They've impacted our community. No public meeting. They're still being used as apartments. They've helped people like Quincy College regarding temporary shelter situation I wouldn't call it temporary shelter, but temporary transitional situation, right, for Quincy College at one point in time. They had a greater impact when they had those apartments full in the city than it's what's going on right now, because those folks are going to be staying for a full school year and they may have children going to go into the school system. So you could have potential there's actually 70 apartments. They could have potential up to 70 families any given school year that impacted our community. Okay, remember that, guys. That's what I'm putting in context for you all. Here we have a situation where 50 apartments that are there between 3 and 5-ish days. They're going to be someplace else like Concord, West Springfield, Worcester, and Provincetown, over and over other communities, right? So they're coming in, health check process, get on the bus, we're going to somewhere else, or whatever transport the National Guard's going to provide. And people want a public meeting there, which I understand, because you have a new service that's different on private property or a private contract that isn't this responsibility of the city. Actually, the city has no responsibility for this. But at the same time, though, you've had in the past apartments there that had families that potentially impact our school system because they introduced new kids to the system. And in my lifetime living here, because I'm 10 minutes from ENC, and you all know, I showed up a lot of community meetings long before I got elected. Never attended one community meeting about the impact of ENC families coming in. So you may not buy this argument. That's fine. But the logic is sensible if you think your way through it.
Well, I think it's indicative of the divisiveness of the issue of immigration in this country.
Well, it's also who you're immigrating from. I mean, again, unfortunately, we had NSC 131. As like I say, I'm a very patient person. People have told me, no, I'm fairly patient. Now, I draw the line of Nazis and white supremacists. I really have no patience for these folks. I mean, certain things I have no patience for. And they actually refer to these folks as African invaders. Now, let's not ignore the part African. Mm-hmm. They're white supremacists. And the words change over time, and those of us old enough to know these words have changed. And now the word's African and Central American invaders. This is not new. Chinese invasion is not a new statement from my childhood. And the Asian invasions, Japanese invasions. I mean, it's not new to me. It's just that people who have never experienced it think it's new. So it attracted an element that was not instigated by the migrants or ENC or the city or the state or any of the neighbors. These folks came in on their own. And nobody in Quincy, to my knowledge, encouraged nor invited white supremacists to our neighborhoods, which caused greater and more dangerous disruption by carrying lit flares in a residential area. Thankfully, the grass was wicked wet because there was a thunderstorm on Saturday, actually, side note, I missed Chowderfest because I was awake and got back in Quincy in time for massive thunderstorms. So I'm sorry I missed Chowderfest as a quick side note. But yeah, thankfully, the ground was so wet. One flare in a dry day, if this was a dry day, could have been much more tragic for the neighbors.
Yeah, it's true. It's something I hadn't thought of, but that's very true. Absolutely. The mayor talked a little bit about, public safety and the police responsibilities and to monitor situations like that and, to take action if legal lines are crossed.
Well, my understanding is they never actually crossed onto the ENC property. My understanding, they also stayed off residential property. They stayed in a public way. These folks are pretty good on the First Amendment stuff. In terms of knowing where they can and cannot be. That also being said, the flares do trouble me because, right, you guys don't remember the days of, somebody may remember the days of torches with people wearing white sheets over their faces. Now it's black ski masks and flares. In some states, by the way, you may not be aware of this, but wearing anything that looks like Ku Klux Klan is automatically a hate crime.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I can't remember the Massachusetts state hate law statute. It's been a little while since I looked at it, but I don't think I got to look at it again, but I'm trying to remember whether or not wearing Klan outfit automatically constitutes, but in other states, yeah. So this is a national organization, obviously receiving information on a national level. They'd like to provide information on a uniform level to all their locals. This is an organized group. This isn't just spontaneously people having a couple of drinks and decide to put on a ski mask and bring it flare to your neighborhood. Actually, our neighborhood. I do live here, so it is our neighborhood in this case to cause some disruption. So the fact that they're using black ski masks and flares as opposed to torches and Ku Klux Klan outfits, is an indicator that they are very knowledgeable about the laws in other states, and many states are going to hate crime law. Very knowledgeable how the First Amendment works. Again, the torches, the flares, substitution for torches, right? It's harder to make the connection of some states regarding the Hagerham statute.
Mm. Hmm. Let's change topics a little bit, Tacky. How about that?
Sure, always happy to talk about anything.
I had the director of the Massachusetts State Lottery on our program not too long ago, and he's pretty certain over the period of time that the lottery will be going online to some degree. What do you think?
Well, another local kid does good, right? Mark Bracken is a local kid, guys. So it's always good to see homegrown kids do great in government. We talked about the online lottery before. I agree it's an inevitability. The lottery, again, had a bumper number of record sales like it consistently does. The fear the lottery has is changing consumer habits will not keep up with sports betting and other online forms of entertainment. I still have a disagreement about that because I do not believe people's taste regarding entertainment is transferable. If you like to bet on sports, unless you see a $1 billion mega ticket on the Powerball or Mega, what is it? Powerball and
Mega Millions. Yeah.
Millions. You're not inclined to buy a lottery ticket. So, they think this is a way of getting consumer transfer because all gamblers are the same. Gamblers are not the same. It is specific taste, specific interests driven. And, as we get to, again, it looks like almost $600 million, right? Coming up on, I don't know which one, but one of them is going to be $600 million soon. The ticket sales are going to tick up again, which also benefits the lottery. But, but that'll be like a spare change situation. Someone's like, okay, I'll do this. But the Patriots are now playing again. And I think if people who are sports bettors are going to do a Sunday game parlay, are probably going to parlay, not go online to buy a lotto ticket. Or play a lotto instant scratch, or play a lotto.
Yeah, that was his argument too. Is that it if anything, it increases lottery sales rather than decreases them.
Yeah, but the problem is that they can stay. They believe it's transferability of gambler dollars.
Right.
There's no transfer. There will be no transferability of gambler dollars, and I'll give you the greatest example. Back in the Finneran era, when he was speaker during the mid-90s. He was vehemently against casino gambling, expansion of slot machines at the racetrack, vehemently against it. So Speaker Finneran contracted a research company to talk about whether or not they have adverse impact on the lottery. Lottery is one of the strongest lotteries in the country. 1972. I read the report as a staffer multiple times now. Back then, and they had stated that the lottery faced a 10% decline in sales as a result of the casinos coming. They did this by changing the metrics in the formula. So when you do a research study, you usually get one formula through the whole thing, and you just put in the variables. Change the formula midway through to meet the facts you're trying to accomplish. And that's how you have bad studies. You have to keep it consistent through the study, the formula you're going to use as you plug the numbers in.
Like the scientific method, same thing, yeah.
Yep. So since then, we've had casino gambling, essentially, let's call it 7 years because COVID was weird. And lottery sales, bumper crop of lottery sales, folks. So I was
breaking all kinds of revenue records, yeah.
Yep, that's why when I staffed, I didn't believe, and I did a lot of casino and gaming research when I staffed for Michael Morrissey. Trust me, and a lot of folks that know this system as well as I do at a policy level, that it wouldn't have zero impact on the lottery because the lottery is a mature lottery. The studies cited areas where the lottery and the casinos came to existence within a 5-year period of each other. So you had an immature lottery and casinos by nature can rapidly mature. Of course, the lottery failed. Because the couldn't compete with a rapid mature casino, and you had no time as a lottery to develop a customer base.
Right.
Massachusetts has been developing customer bases since 1972, and the casinos, even though rapidly matured, again, transferability of consumer dollars. Right, consumers that were going to play the lottery play the lottery. Those who don't are not. So. The second argument of online gambling, and I'm sure Mark went through this, is attracting new customers.
Yes. Yeah. It was.
Yeah, I love it when the state talks about trying to attract people to a vice, right? So uh I know you can tell I don't love the lottery in
Well, he
certain.
did talk about being responsible and all the things that he should talk about.
Yeah, I know. You guys can all tell by a bit of sarcasm here, a lot out of my voice. I'm not oblivious to the negative effects of these things. I think people
Right.
have this misconception I am just a one-sided thinker. I am not. I'm not oblivious to the consequences of things like this. So the question is, if you have someone, let's say, is 24 years old, um, and you give them a DraftKings app and a lottery app, where is this consumer dollar going to go?
Mm.
I'm going to tell you, it's going to go to the DraftKings app more
Okay.
often than a lottery app.
Hmm. Okay. Just because of his age.
No, transferability of dollars. The presumption is I'll gamble on anything.
Yeah.
That's false. Unless you have a severe addiction, and even those with severe gambling addictions have a sin of choice, so to speak. They like specific games. It isn't like you bet on every type of thing that shows up. It isn't like, I'll bet on the changing color of a street light if you offer me $1, right? That's
Mm.
not how addiction works in gambling. And to have a specific type of stimulus that triggers the addiction, it creates the dopamine effect of addiction. And gamblers have a specific tastes, and addicted gamblers especially have specific tastes.
I
So
see.
the idea is that you can move one consumer to another because by nature of being anyone who gambles must enjoy gambling on anything. That is 100% false.
Interesting. Yeah. Hmm. Well, we'll see. It's up to I guess it's passed the House, but not the Senate. Is that right?
Yeah, it was actually part of state budget. Didn't make it out of conference committee. I have the online lottery bills in committee, folks.
Okay.
That's among many things I do as a committee chair. People wonder why I'm always so tired looking. I have a lot of things going on in my mind at all times. Uh, um, Obviously, House leadership wants to do this online lottery. I have to um, the second Wednesday in February to get my bills out of committee. Obviously, I have to work with a co-chair. You hear me talk about that all the time on this podcast.
Hmm.
There may be a supplemental budget, or there will be a supplemental budget in October to close the books, fiscal year books. We can talk about that more if you like. And then maybe a couple of other pieces of legislation they could act on the lottery in the back of, but
Maybe next week.
yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe. I mean, I'll talk to the leadership as we continue this fall period about what their thought is about how they want to unroll online lottery. I think my co-chair amical to the idea of doing it, but I have to have a longer conversation with them. And obviously the Senate didn't want to do it through the budget process. So
Right. Yeah.
I don't have a clean answer for you because I haven't figured that part out yet.
Okay. Hey, the governor's coming to Quincy, Techie.
Yep, tomorrow the 14th, about 11:15-ish, depending on her ability to get places on time because of the nature of being a governor.
Right. Yeah.
She's going to go to Snug Harbor School in Germantown to talk about the Universal Meal Program. This is something that pretty much everybody supports, providing universal school meals, both breakfast and lunches. You may remember during the pandemic, the federal government had provided to a city, actually all states, sufficient COVID money to cover universal school lunch and breakfasts. And then obviously they pulled back the rug. Again, this is one of those things we talked about earlier about responsibility of the feds and dumping it on us. Last year, we were able to start the Universal Meal Program, and this year's budget, we are able to make it fully, all meals at schools. So Speaker Mariano, myself, most likely Senator John Keenan might most likely be there, as well as Governor Healy, to talk about Universal School Meal Program and the benefit it has for our communities. Those of you who know Germantown, I mean, it's one of the more diverse parts of the city. The socioeconomics tend to be a little lower than other parts of the city, but if you know the community, it's actually quite a diverse community, not just socioeconomics and ethnic, but also the different types of homes. If you visit down there, it's actually quite interesting, the different diversity of homes and the people living down there. So it's a great spot. I'm very thankful and appreciative they decided to come to my district, my part of Quincy, to announce this program. And then one of the most reflection of our state, parts of the city.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it, sure. And QATV plans to be there too. So we'll bring that to folks sometime next week.
Yeah, make sure you don't cut me out of the picture, Joe.
Of course not, Tacky. We'll get a full close-up of you, so make sure your hair is combed.
Well, I do need a cut, but I suspect it won't be till October. My schedule's a little gone nutty in the
Okay.
month of September. So I'm actually have quite of a nonstop whirlwind for about 15 or so days in my schedule. But we will always make time somehow to be with you, Joe. But I will definitely comb my hair. I promise.
We'll do it before and after. How do we get a hold of you in the meantime?
Well, you can reach us at 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370. Again, I remind folks, this is Jerry Paracella's office, suite I'm in, which is the Chair of Economic Development and Emerging Technologies. He gets the top billing on the phone in terms of an automated system. We do have people answering the phone, but if it's a busy day, obviously it kicks into the automated system. So, smash a button, get to a staffer at this point, just hit anybody. And if they're there, they're there. If not, you get the voicemail. And then nowadays they show up on our phones because they email us the voicemails. Yeah, I know technology, right? And then we'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you send us an email at tackey.chan@mahouse.gov, tackey.chan@mahouse.gov. My email box is somewhat sane at the moment, which it won't be probably in 2 weeks as I get close to public hearings. All committee testimony to the committee also comes to my email, not just your emails, as well as advocates' emails. So we do our best to respond to folks that are immediate need. I see all your public policy requests, believe me, I do. But we deal folks with immediate constituent problems first. State Representative Tackey Chan Facebook. Perhaps be a posting of us together tomorrow, Joe. Over that Facebook site, you can see places I've been, put up some useful information, same as at Tackey Chan at X now. It's Elon Musk's X. And obviously state tackeychan.org, again, an informational page. There's also a form you can fill out that will come to my email. And then you have the state website, MAlegislature.gov. You can look up bills on your own. You can sign at times. The days of me having to, I still remember when I used to take phone calls, people were looking for bills, and I would have to go get one from the doctor's room and stick it in the mail for people. Nowadays, you can do it yourself. Times change. And of course, you can hear Joe in the morning at QATV to get the show updates. And you can, watch us on YouTube or Community Access Cable or your favorite podcast station.
That's right. We've got you covered and coming and going.
Absolutely. I've noticed Joe's been very busy this week, given the volume of podcasts showing up. So I might get lost in the shuffle this time. You all may not hear me.
Oh, no. We'll always make space for you, Tacky. Always enough bandwidth for Tacky Talk. Thanks a lot. Always good to talk to you.
Great to see you, Joe, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.